Hey girls, gays, and theys, and welcome back to another episode of the Queer and Podcast. I am so excited that you are here today with me. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be talking about this. I feel like I say this every episode that I start, but this one is super important to me, and I'm really excited. Or I guess I'm just really honored that I get to have a safe space where I get to share my experiences and put myself out there. So thank you for creating that. Thank you for following it. And yeah, I'm thankful for you guys. And this episode, I have a little bit of a different theme than what you guys have seen before in my podcast episode. So it's not political, it's not LGBTQ plus, it's not feminist, it is more mental health, self-care related, self-help kind of, I guess. So today's topic is going to be how to survive the holidays in eating disorder recovery. Basically, how do you stay on track to your recovery and and still, maintain the status of being in recovery during the holidays. And as someone who struggled with anorexia in the past, I know how scary holidays are. I know how difficult holidays are, especially Thanksgiving, which is coming right around the corner, which is why I decided that I should film this now. Because Thanksgiving, it revolves around food. People are making all these different dishes. You're expected to try all these. There's so much family that you're visiting. And a lot of times, it's really hard to set boundaries with your extended family because they might not know your struggles and they may not understand it, especially older people like your grandparents or something like that. And a lot of the times people will comment on your body, or a lot of the times people will comment on their food. They'll say like, oh, I'll be good after Thanksgiving or after the holidays. Like, I'm going on this diet, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And it can be really, really triggering. And also just generally really scary to be around all that food, to, there's so many people watching you, there's so much pressure on you. And I feel like it's not talked about enough, because for me, I remember specifically, like, Thanksgiving was fucking hell. I hated Thanksgiving. It was the worst because it was very food oriented. But I also hated holidays in general, and I never got into the holiday spirit, and I never got to, be excited about the holidays or whatever, because I would hate them, because all I would think about is food, my body. People are going to be commenting on my body. There's going to be so much food, like so many foods that I'm not comfortable around, that I'm gonna have to eat because I want to look normal, or I don't want people to know that I'm sick, or whatever the case. And there's just like a bazillion things that went through my mind during the holidays that I can just imagine might be going through some people's heads who may be struggling with this. And even if you don't struggle with this, I think it's good to watch, because these are good tips for, if you have friends or family who may struggle with this, you're able to, kind of guide them. Hopefully with these tips and with like these experiences and whatever. But yeah, how long am I in recovery? 2.5 years, I think. Maybe, yeah, around 2.5 years in recovery. And it's been a wild journey, full of ups and downs, low moments, high moments. Recovery is not linear. Definitely 100%. There have been really bad days and there have been good days. And I think that that's important, because that's realistic recovery. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that, because recovery isn't, oh, you're suddenly just fixed and you don't struggle with it anymore. No, usually, for me at least, recovery is a choice that I make every single day, whether I'm aware of it or not, whether it's a conscious choice or not. Some days I do wake up and it's really difficult. I'm in my head a lot and there's a lot of thoughts. And, I make this active choice of, no, you've come so far. Like, it's fine. It's just, it's fine. Like, we're going through with this. We're sticking to recovery because we know how I felt back then and I don't want to go back there. But sometimes it's not a conscious decision. Sometimes I just wake up and I know that I'm doing this. I know that I'm doing recovery, and that's what I've been doing. And in a lot of ways, it's very different from my eating disorder, but in a lot of ways, it's kind of the same because it's like a pattern that you kind of get used to over time. Like with my eating disorder, I wasn't consciously, every day waking up and being like, I'm not gonna eat or like whatever. It just became like so obsessive. And I don't feel the same way about recovery, but I think it's like, you get into the habit of it. It's like this pattern. And obviously, it's a way healthier pattern and a way healthier, like everything. Um, but it does get easier through, as time gets there, kind of with like your eating disorder. And the first like few times it may be very difficult because you may still have your hunger cues and all of this and that. Then as time goes on, it's kind of easier for you to unfortunately you know go into behaviors, and it gets more dangerous and la 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 la. But yeah, this is for anyone in all stages of recovery, whether that's, you're in early recovery, you're just beginning recovery, whether that's, you're a few years into recovery, a few months into recovery, whatever the case may be. Hopefully you get some insight from this. Hopefully I'm able to guide you, and hopefully my experiences and my struggles and my tips resonate with you, and you can take something with you from this video. Because I wish that there were videos like this for me when I was going through recovery, and maybe I could have found them, but I didn't. So I don't know. It's always been my hope to be able to provide some kind of support that I always felt like would have been helpful for me. So yeah. I also acknowledge and have had the privilege to be able to attend a treatment center where I was monitored through the very, very earliest stages of recovery. And I don't count that as recovery because I don't think I was actually very active in recovery. I think I was just there because I needed to be there because I was gonna like not survive kind of thing. But it wasn't a great time, and I know that it was a privilege because not everyone has, unfortunately, the privilege to accessible and affordable healthcare like I did. And I want to share what I've gained from being able to attend treatment, because they provide you with a lot of tips and a lot of resources, which deeply helped me. And I don't think I would be where I am today if it wasn't for my treatment, and the active care that I was receiving every day. There was so much attention on me, not just on me, it was like just in general, like there's so much attention on like my behaviors and so much like work and therapy and processing and all of this. And I was able to gain a lot from it, and I was able to heal from it. But I know that for a lot of people it's different, different experiences with treatment. Maybe you didn't have the luxury and the privilege to go to treatment. And maybe a part of you is still battling it, your eating disorder voice, and maybe it's still there, and maybe it's still a part of you, and that is okay, because everyone's recovery looks different. Everyone's recovery is different throughout different stages in their lives. And like I said, recovery is never linear. Some days you may wake up and you may really, really hear that eating disorder voice, and it may, just be right here and be like, annoying you all day long. Some days you don't hear from it. Some days you feel like it's not there, or sometimes you always carry it with you, but it's less loud as the days pass. There's just variations. So whatever the case is, here's some of my tips and tricks and how I dealt with holidays, how I still deal with holidays today. So yeah, I think I'm gonna start with how I used to deal with things, because I think that that's for maybe more like early on stages of recovery, because I think that that's when it was most scary for me, because now I'm getting out of this routine and I'm getting out of this ritual of harmful behaviors associated with my eating disorder, right? But I was also scared because everybody would be watching me and everybody would be picking me apart. At least I felt that way, because a lot of my family knew about my eating disorder, and I felt like there were so many changes that were happening within my body and within my weight in specific, that I didn't feel comfortable with, and I had a very hard time grasping. And so it was really terrifying for me to, have this huge holiday, like family event where like everyone's there, and it's very, very normal to comment on people's food intake, to comment on people's body weight during these times. And it can be super triggering because sometimes people even say it on your body. They'll say, "Oh, you look really healthy," or like whatever. And I don't think that people realize how detrimental that is to people in recovery, because I know how it feels. Even like I remember how horrible it was when people would come up to me and say, "You look really healthy," even though their intentions were pure and they didn't do it from, wanting to harm you, and they genuinely were like, "Hey, you look really healthy." Like, they probably meant, and like, I'm proud of you, like, keep it up, whatever. But to me, I was like, "Oh, they think I'm fat. Okay, so like they think I'm fat." That's just what my brain was telling me at that time. It was like, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat. And that would just stick with me throughout the whole day. And usually it's not just one person who says that. It's like a few people, in their family. They'll say like, "Oh, you look really healthy," or like, "Oh, I heard about this," or like, "I heard about that," or like, "Oh, look, you're eating," or like, and sometimes they'll, bring awareness to the food that you may be eating or that you're eating in general, which can do the opposite of what they think it is, because it's like "Oh, I'm so proud of you, like great job, like woo," like kind of trying to praise you. But at least I was like, "No, I don't want you to acknowledge what I'm eating. I don't want you to acknowledge that I'm eating. I don't even want you to acknowledge that I'm here, that I exist. Like, please don't. I just need to get this day over with," right? And that's how I felt, because once they would acknowledge me, that means that they would acknowledge my body. That means that they would acknowledge the food that I'm intaking. That means that they would, probably make comments innocently, being like, "Oh, wow, like, I haven't seen you eat this in a long time," or "Wow, like, this program must be working," or whatever. Like, I've heard all these things, and in my head, it's just like, I don't know, because it was so hard to let go of my eating disorder, because at that time it was clinging so strong onto me, like it was my best friend, and it was like, "See, like this is why you stick with me, because you don't get as hurt and because you don't feel like this," and da 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 da. And while that's not true, and we can acknowledge that that's not true, that's how I felt in the moment, and it is okay to feel things that you may not necessarily rationally agree with, because feelings sometimes aren't rational. Feelings are just our feelings. They just are how we feel in the moment, and it's important to recognize that. It's important to process that as well, and sit with that and allow yourself to kind of pick it apart. Like, "Hey, I feel this way. Why?" Da-da-da, instead of, ignoring it or stuff like that, because then it'll just keep coming back and you don't necessarily know the root of it. But if you just like deal with it right away, then you can just get through it a lot easier, I feel like, and a lot quicker, because then you'll be like, "Hey, okay, I'm giving you the attention, right? I'm allowing you to like take out time of my day that I really don't want taken out of my day to think about my thoughts right now, but I'm allowing it because I want to get to the bottom of this. I want to see the root cause. I want to know why I feel like this and why, you feel like this." And to me, what I've learned throughout my very many years of therapy, what I found helpful is talking to my emotions, or, imagining my own emotions as little figures, kind of like in Inside Out. um, and kind of, talking to them and really addressing it. Like for me, for anxiety has been something that I struggle with a lot, but it's at least anxiety doesn't exist because it wants to actively harm me. It's actually the opposite. It's trying to protect me from potential harm. And obviously, sometimes that gets out of hand, right? But what I like to do is I like to talk to it directly. I like to be like, "Hey, we're not in danger right now. Like, it's okay, la la," and like kind of, I don't know. And once you kind of talk to it, and once you kind of, try to ask it questions, or like, "Hey, how do you feel about this statement? How do you feel about this and this and this?" And see kind of how it reacts to various things, you can kind of get to the bottom of it, and the bottom of the root cause, where it's like, bam, like it kind of all is, it's like making sense now. I don't know. I don't know. I feel very weird talking about this, but I feel like some of you guys may understand if you've been through therapy, if you've been through, the wheel of emotions and let's talk about our emotions and like whatnot. Yeah. So for me, I would do that a lot. I would talk to my eating disorder voice and I would also talk to my recovery voice. And it would be a constant battle and it was not great. It would just be like they would be yapping all day at each other and yelling at each other. And one voice, the eating disorder voice, was particularly loud and particularly clingy. And the recovery voice was kind of very shy and defeated. And now it's not the same. But that's how it was in the beginning of my journey through recovery. So when I would get a comment that I didn't feel okay with, I would light up a few parts of my brain, a few of my emotions. It would light up, my eating disorder voice. It'd be like, wake, dip, dip, I'm alert. Then it would, like light up my anxiety and my depression and all these different emotions. And they'd be like, see, I'm telling you like this and this and this. And my eating disorder voice would just be so loud and be telling me all these things. And it'd be like, see, and this is why, like, I'm trying to protect you from these comments and I'm trying to do this. And like, if you only listened to me and if you only did just this one more diet or like one more behavior or whatever, like, then you would reach your goals and then it would be fine. Then you would be finally happy. And it's like really what this eating disorder is. It's like, it's getting you to accomplish these goals that are never ending. Because that's how it started for me. And that's how I feel like it starts for most people. I've heard, at least through like various experiences with people that I've talked to that have struggled with eating disorders. So yeah, it would feel like this like never-ending cycle of like all these goals that it has for you. And once you reach this goal, you'll be happy and like that's it. Like that's all. And I feel like that's like it's like this loop, like that it's just like this never-ending cycle, and that's how it first gets you. It's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of like a cult. Like, this is such a weird description. I don't think anyone has ever described an eating disorder as a fucking cult, but here we are. It's kind of like how they'll lure you in, and then it's like, oh, you can't leave now. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense, but it kind of, I don't know. Maybe you'll see where I'm getting from. Anyways, it's kind of like this never-ending cycle where it's like, just reach this goal, just this one. So like, I don't know, in my head it'll be like, first it started with like, let's just cut this out of your diet, right? Oh, have you heard of this diet? I think this would make you feel better about yourself. And then it's like, oh, that doesn't work. Okay, so that didn't work. And instead of being like, hey, maybe it's just like, this isn't making me happy because I'm starving myself and because I'm depriving my body of food and nutrients that I need to survive, it'll be like, okay, let's try this, even more restrictive, and this and this and this. And it just gets like even more and more and more restrictive as you surpass the goals. And then at one point, your goal is unachievable unless you die. And at one point you're aware that it's unachievable, and at one point you're aware that you don't want to stop these behaviors. And I remember this was such a revelation for me. It was like, I was at the doctor's office and he was like, so what's your goal? And I was like, you mean like weight goal or whatever? He was like, yeah, sure. And so I would tell him, and first of all, it was so scary, didn't make any, like, what the fuck? But when I told him that, he was like, but is that really your goal? Are you gonna stop when you get there? And I was like, no. And he was like, exactly. You're not. You're never gonna stop until you die, essentially, because I mean, you're gonna die eventually if you keep leading yourself through this cycle of starvation, right? And it kind of hit me then, where I was like, damn, like, I didn't think about it like that before. I just thought it was a diet. I just thought it was harmless because everybody talks about diets. Everybody's on diets. Everybody diets. That's normal. That's fine. That's harmless. But it's so easy for it to become so much more so quickly. And I think that that is heightened during the holidays because so many people are talking about diets. So many people are talking about it. And so many people feel the need to bring it up during dinner or during, food or like whatever. And they'll eat a fucking cookie during Christmas. They'll be like, I'm going to make up for it. starting January. Like, I'm going on this diet, this diet, this diet. Like, and it's like, you don't have to justify why you're eating a cookie. You just wanted a cookie. Eat the cookie. And it's like, they don't have eating disorders, right? Like, it's not like that for them, but it's still like this, like, toxic mindset of, I have to justify why I'm eating something. When it's like, this is food. I'm craving it. I want it. Therefore, I am eating it. You don't have to justify food. It's like if you were trying to justify, like, I don't know, your water intake or why you need to pee. Or like it's like so bizarre. It's like, no. Why is this normalized? Why are we doing this? Like, just eat the cookie if you want to eat the cookie. Like, you don't have to tell me about all these 20 fucking diets that you're going to go on starting from the new year. And then you call me up on New Year's and, we're chit-chatting and you're talking about how miserable you are. But it's like, yeah, I'm on this diet, this diet, this diet. And like, I've been having horrible headaches and like, I feel so miserable. And I'm like, I wonder why. Maybe it's because you're restrictive eating. Maybe it's because you're on this diet and it's not actually making you happy. Because how happy is your life if, you're in this constant cycle of, I'm going to eat what I want, but then I'm going to diet because I feel bad about this because I didn't deserve it. But it's like, you don't earn food. That's like, no. And it's like, you see that in any other species, like, besides humans, where it's like animals. They'll just hunt when they're hungry and they'll just eat until they're full, until they, don't feel hunger anymore. And they're not over justifying why they're eating that much or why they're eating this or why they're eating that day. It's like, no, they're just eating. And it's like so bizarre that we have normalized this as a society, and it's like this whole diet culture thing, and it's like so annoying. And it's so annoying how heightened it is during the holidays, because people are trying to be having a nice time. People are trying to have fun. And they're like fun and festive and whatever. And then it's just like this talk about food, and this unnecessary talk about body, this unnecessary talk about diets and whatever the case may be. Where it's like, why are we so still, even when, you're with family, you're having a great time, it's the holidays, you're happy, la 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 la, you're still thinking about it. That's how loud it is in your head. And I feel like for somebody who is in recovery, to be around that, in that type of environment, where people aren't in active recovery, because people, they don't have eating disorders, right? It's like, yeah, sure, they have these diets that they may do, but it's never become so severe like it has for people with eating disorders, right? And I'm speaking more about restrictive eating disorders here because that's the only thing that I have experiences with. And I'm sorry, because I don't have experience with binge eating or stuff like that. So I can't speak for that aspect of eating disorders. Because I'm not going to talk about out of my ass, right? Like, my podcast is about my personal experiences, and if I don't have personal experiences to relate it to, I don't really have tips and advice to give you. So that's why I'm just like refraining from talking about it, but just because I don't know how to handle that. That's like a completely different like thing. I don't have experiences with that. I don't have, so I can't speak on it. I feel like, I mean, like, yeah, if you get what I'm saying. But it's like, you're surrounded by these people who, aren't like you. They aren't in active recovery. They aren't in this active path. And it's really, really hard to be in active recovery when you're around these people. It's kind of like if you're a recovering alcoholic and you're around people in the beginning of your stages, you're in a bar and, everyone's drinking and nobody's thinking about it, and people are even getting drunk and like whatever. And it's like, you aren't even drinking at all, right? And it feels so much more horrible. Your like voice, your alcoholic voice, is that what they call, I don't know what they call it, but like that voice that like makes you drink uncontrollably and like, is why you became an alcoholic in the first place. It's like so heightened and so loud because like, hey, everyone else is around you is drinking, like one drink it won't hurt, one drink it won't hurt. And then it's the spiral. And it's kind of the same thing with eating disorder. It's like, one behavior won't hurt one behavior, but then one behavior leads to another and another and another, and you're down this whole spiral path again. And a lot of people don't understand that because a lot of people have never had personal experiences with it and they don't really get it. They're like, oh, for me, like I'm able to, this is an example, diet for 2 weeks, stop the diet, da 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 da, and that's it. Like I don't think twice about it, like whatever. But that's not how it is for us, unfortunately. I don't think it will ever be like that for me. I don't have the desire to diet because I'm so over diet culture and so over that, ew. But I don't think that even if that was something that I wanted, I don't think that I could ever diet without it becoming my eating disorder again. Because even that little tiny thing that I'm giving into, that one restriction that I'm giving into, is going to lead me down this path. And it's kind of like how sometimes, there's certain alcoholics who can't even have like one drink because they're going to go down this spiral. And obviously, different recovery tactics work for different people, right? But for me, that's how I feel. And so, how to deal with this? I think setting boundaries ahead of time, right? And it's really difficult to do that because it's really difficult to kind of like have these conversations, especially with your extended family and especially with people that you don't see that often, or people who don't understand it or don't get it or aren't really trying to listen to what you have to say. They're kind of just in their own worlds, in their own minds, and whatever. But I think it's still important to, try at least and set these boundaries of, hey, I don't want you to talk about my body, talk about my food intake. This makes me uncomfortable. This makes me uncomfortable. If you're going to talk about this, refrain from talking about it in front of me. If you want to, comment on other people's bodies, sure. I mean, like, I don't condone that, but don't comment on my body. And I've even started implementing this within my own family, that I'll oftentimes visit during the summer, and, they love making comments about body weight and all of this, and, to them it's like, I'm just looking out for you or whatever. But I've told them multiple times because, yeah, sometimes it's hard to get that boundary enforced the first time. So you have to say it multiple times. You have to repeat yourself. So I've said multiple times, like, hey, no, you're not making any comments on my body. You're not making any comments on my food. It's not happening. And sometimes even if they start, I'll just stop them right then and I'll be like, nope, we're not having this conversation. And I think as my time in recovery passes, they think that I'm okay with those conversations, so they'll try to bring it up again, and I'll be like, nope, shut it down, not having this conversation. Nope, don't want to hear it, don't care. Because I know how much it affects me, and I don't want it to affect me. I don't want it to affect me. I just want to have a nice day, I don't want to be self-conscious that day. I don't want to, have to actively think and actively choose recovery that day. I just want to, go into my recovery mode, Like, I don't want to have to, like, battle for it that day. I don't want that extra weight. I don't want that extra struggle. And that is completely okay. You don't have to want that. But sometimes situations aren't ideal. Things will slip up. People won't respect your boundaries, especially, like I'm saying, if you're enforcing it for the first time, or if it's a new thing to them. They may not be used to it. It takes adjustment, sure, but doesn't justify when people say it because it still hurts the same, whether it was intentional or not. So, yeah, boundaries, and also just preparing yourself in advance, giving yourself the time to prepare for an event that may be scary for you, like Thanksgiving, if you know that it's going to revolve around food, if you know that there's potential topics that may be brought up that can be triggering, preparing yourself ahead of time and kind of game planning, have a recovery plan that you can keep handy or that you can, refer back to, where it's like, okay, if I hear this and it really bothers me, instead of maybe, going to a behavior to feel better, maybe I'll do this to make me feel better, and whatever that replacement may be for you. Like, maybe I'll watch this movie, or maybe I'll read this book, or maybe I'll do this instead of this behavior, because it's less damaging to me right now. right? Um, and even if that's distracting yourself for a while, if that's what's going to get you through it, that's what's going to get you through it. It's not ideal, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do, especially in the early stages. Like sometimes I would just literally binge watch shows for hours because I was like, nope, don't want to think about it, don't want to think about it, don't want to think about it. And it would get me through it. And, you know, even through eating, I would just have distractions while I'm eating. And I think that that's actually helpful. Sometimes what I like about Thanksgiving is that there's a lot of conversations that are being held. So sometimes it's easier because you're not so much focused on your food that's on the plate and, you know, this whole eating thing. Rather, you're kind of focused on these conversations, these people that you haven't seen in a while, and you're also eating. And for me, that's helpful because I know that in my treatment center, we did like table games and we would have conversations during our meals because that would distract us from like what we're eating. Because especially in the early stages, like I'm saying, it would be really hard to, you know, look at this food and be like, this is what I'm eating. And you would start freaking out and you would start thinking about it. And if you're alone with those thoughts, it can be a lot harder to get through it than if you're distracted. Hey, I'm talking to this person. Oh, this topic. Oh, wow. This. And it's kind of like, wow, I'm eating on the way. And it's kind of like, you're not thinking about it as much. I don't know. That's something that helps me sometimes. That's why sometimes, even today, I just watch shows while I'm eating because sometimes I'm like, nope, I can't do it. So yeah, I think, you know, also knowing yourself, and knowing what you may need, and if you need extra support, knowing how to be able to ask for it ahead of time so you can get that support so that that support can be with you through the holidays, right? Whether that be upping your therapy, right? If you're therapy once a week, maybe, hey, can we do it twice a week for this holiday season? Specific safe people that you can go to and, you know, a support system. You can be like, hey, this is a really hard time for me and I'm going to need this type of support from you. I'm going to need this or this. And just, you know, asking for it ahead of time and also knowing that those people are there for you if you need it. You know, having a place where you can go to process everything that you've felt, or, you know, having people who may stand up for you if it becomes hard to set these boundaries, or it becomes hard to, you know, try and change the topic or whatever, you know, having these people who might interfere and step in and be like, hey, so actually they don't want to talk about this right now, or actually, why don't we talk about this, or like, hey, this is exciting in my life, try and take it off of the pressure and the what's it called when it's like on you, the spotlight on you there. So yeah, getting to know yourself, getting to know what you need in recovery and where you can actively find those resources, right? Whether that's support system, whether that's therapy, whether that's distractions, whether that's a combination of all, whether it's whatever the case may be. Just making it realistic and also making it feasible, right? And whatever it is, if it's gonna keep you from engaging in behaviors, it's gonna keep you from engaging in behaviors. If you're not hurting others and you're not hurting yourself, then, you know, like, for the most part, do what you gotta do. I'm not trying to condone anything like, whoa, but, you know, like, typical things, like, you know. So yeah, I think those are my tips. Tips and tricks. Trying to normalize these things, these struggles. They're very normal. Maybe I'll even like talk about it after the holiday seasons, you know. Maybe I'll have a follow-up where I'll talk about my experiences, like, hey, this is how my holiday was as somebody who's in recovery. Because sometimes, I mean, I still struggle with holidays. I hate holidays. Thanksgiving is coming up and I am not excited. I'm not thrilled. I'm like, nope, no. And as soon as I hear somebody talking about a diet, I'm like, you know what's fun? This is, I'm just like changing the topic. I'm like, so did you know that I am actually, I don't know, switching my major? And it'll be like something that's like so not happening, but like I'll just think about it in the moment and I'll be like, yeah, no, I was thinking of, you know, switching from political science to biochem, like, and like it'll just be so random, but it's like, now we're not talking about this. And also, because it's been such a while, it's been like 2.5 years, I feel like most people know that I'm not into those topics, and I can be very like direct with them, and I'll be like, nope, and I think that that's something that you get better with as you progress in your recovery. It's easier for you to advocate for yourself. So yeah, that's all for today. I'm holding space for you. I'm holding love and support for you. I'm always here. My DMs are always open, just not for mean comments and triggering things. If you ever want to talk and you need some kind of support, that's fine, but do keep it to like a appropriate, like a limit type of thing, because I'm just a human being as well. And yeah, follow me on all my socials. I have TikTok, I have YouTube, Spotify, depending on where you listen from, as well as Instagram, and that is all Queer and Podcast, all together in all lowercase, and all of the words are spelled out. Yeah, thank you for listening, and I really hope that you can implement this and that it will be helpful and that this was a helpful episode. Let me know what you want to hear me talk about next. Keep up with me on my social media, because I do sometimes post polls on my Instagram specifically regarding content that you want to see, or content changes that are happening, or whatever the case may be. So keep up with me, and I love you all.